I'm sick of this Disney shit.
Yeah, it was fun for a while, but it's gotten to be a bit much.
I'm honestly worried about Matt's state of mind at this point. An entire month cosplaying as Disney princesses is a bit much.
He's no monster, Gaston. You are.
God knows where he gets all the costumes from.
Bad news, boys. It seems I made a slight miscalculation.
The cold never bothered me anyway.
What's wrong with what's-his-name?
You do not want to know.
You're right, I don't care. Listen, the pact I made, the contract I signed with Walt Disney's Frozen Head, well, it turns out it wasn't Walt Disney, but some kind of trickster demon. Said he had an issue with you last year when you trapped him inside a Neo Morpheus Trinity or something.
There's a Neo Geo Pocket.
Don't care! Anyway, he came to my office earlier and said if I don't hand over your souls, he'll take mine.
I am not a prize to be won.
So long story short, he's taking you all to hell, but the good news is that I'll be fine. Later, boys!
Hello, boys.
Oh, shit. How did he get out?
Well, it wasn't me. Okay, I wanted to play Metal Slug, so I turned it back on and let him out.
And how long ago was this?
I don't know. Probably about exactly 1 month ago.
Well, that's just great. Well done, Ryan. Guess we're all gonna go to hell.
Governor Tarkin, I recognized your foul stench when I was brought on board.
Leia doesn't even wear a bikini in that scene.
Well, you can look after him in hell. It's because of you we're in this mess.
No matter how your heart is grieving, if you keep on believing, the dreams that you wish will come true.
Not today, they won't.
Hello and welcome to episode 21 of the Retro Odyssey podcast. We've got a special Halloween themed episode for you this time. I am your host, Malevolent Matt, and I am joined by Stephen the Skellington, Rotten Ryan, and Attack of the Mutant Adam.
I was going to ask if we all got nicknames.
That's a little bit of a stretch, but okay, nice.
So how has everyone been doing this month?
Easy.
I'm busy.
Yeah, I've been busy. Got married and all that.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Yeah, cheers. So as you can imagine, there's been a lot of work getting that up and running. And then it's been back to work, so that's all good.
Yeah, I'm planning a wedding and then also going to be moving within 2 weeks of the wedding. And I started a new job.
So again, also very busy.
Yeah.
Nice.
And my computer blew up. Well, it didn't blow up, but the hard drive failed. And without a hard drive, well, at least the one with the operating system on, then you've got a dead PC. I've spent a long time trying to sort that out.
Yeah, you got a nice heavy paperweight there.
Yes.
I'm sure there's also a joke about blowing your PC there somewhere, but I'm not quite sure what.
I do have a can of compressed air, which costs £12.50 from PC World.
Really?
£12.50 for a can of compressed air.
That should be some good fucking air.
We could get those for $4.
Or cheaper.
It's a 400ml can, so it is a little bit bigger than your standard one. I mean, I needed it, so I had to pay it, and it was the only shop that was selling it.
That is bananas.
But at least all the dust is gone.
Yeah.
I guess.
I probably need to give the inside of my tower a good cleaning.
Taken a couple different ways, I suppose.
So, with us having a Halloween theme this month, we are doing something a little bit different, and we're going back to an old format for this month. And we have each picked one game that everyone is going to play, and then we'll give our thoughts on it. And they're all going to be horror games, obviously, because it's Halloween.
Well, they're all going to be spooky-ish.
Well, yeah.
I wouldn't call them all horror games.
Kind of horror adjacent.
Thematically appropriate.
Yeah, that'll work.
So before we get into the games, let's take a look at the news topics for this month. We'll take a short break and then we'll go into the news topics.
Spooky ghost blah, I come to haunt you, perhaps.
Okay, it's time for the news this month. We have a few items to take a look at. The first is a new handheld console called the Analog Pocket. Now, I believe, Adam, you know a little bit more about this one?
Yeah, I only know like a little bit about it, to be honest. Basically, it's, you know the guys that do the SG consoles?
Yes.
They did a Mega Drive one, I think, and maybe... Did they do like a Nintendo one as well?
Yes, they did.
There's Mega SG and then, I don't know, whatever it was. Either way, it's the same guys. This is their Pocket version, which is basically like a Game Boy. I mean, it sort of looks like is it the Game Boy? Not the Game Boy Micro, but the Game Boy...
Pocket?
Game Boy Pocket, I think, has that similar design where it's kind of like a square.
Yeah, the picture looks like a Game Boy Pocket.
It's a very nice looking piece of kit. It looks very sleek.
Yeah, it looks pretty cool. And it's designed to play like games from all the Game Boy games. So you've got, I've been up to Game Boy Advance, so not the DS ones, but the ones with the Game Boy marking. But you can get like an addition to it where you can play Game Gear games and I think Neo Geo Pocket.
Dope.
So it plays like a bunch of different stuff. And it's got like an LCD screen and shit like that. It looks pretty neat.
I mean, it looks like it's going to be pretty expensive, which, going by the prices of the previous analog consoles, they are expensive. They are
like £200 or something, or €200 or $200 or something.
$200, which is about £155.
But they're super premium.
Yes, they are. I mean, they are kind of like top of the range, elitist kind of kit. You know, if you really, really do care about getting the best possible gameplay out of your old systems, all fully upscaled with all the options you want, then these are like the go-to kit, really. They're not consumer level. Well, I mean, I guess they are high-end consumer level. There is cheaper kit that can do it. Like I've got a Retron 5, for instance, which can do it. But these kind of take that concept and go like to the next level with it. The reviews of their previous consoles have been amazing, and I'm sure this one will be.
Piece of equipment. I mean, it's not really for me because, well, it would have been for me if the Switch didn't exist.
Yeah.
But now, like for a portable experience, I just kind of take my Switch everywhere. But if the Switch didn't exist, I would probably grab it because, you know, playing all the Game Boy games and the Game Gear games and stuff like that all in one place on an LCD screen would be pretty neat.
Yeah.
Without having to model hardware.
Well, yeah. Exactly.
If it was half the price, then yes, I probably would. I'd go for about 75 on that. But 150, it's a bit too much for me.
Yeah, I mean, it might do in future. You know, if you give it like a few years, maybe the price will go down. I don't know if the other consoles have gone down in price.
Not really, no.
Maybe secondhand. I don't know.
With them being kind of like premium kit, they really do hold their value.
Yeah. No, well, I'm sure they're kind of worth it if you've got the money to spare.
But like I say, I've got my Retron 5. I can play those games on a TV, well, the Game Boy games anyway. So, you know, that's fine for me. And I do have a Game Boy Advance, so I can play those games on the go as well. But it would be nice to have the option to play Game Gear, Neo Geo, and Game Boy all in one unit.
Especially because with those old systems as well, the screens were so shit that when you try and play them portably, you just struggle to see anything, unless it's in the perfect light.
Or the Game Gear, because the Game Gear screen was awesome.
Yeah, but it
Except
did
for when
need
it
like
stopped
a
working.
million batteries.
Well, yeah, like when it stops working, because the batteries have died, that's a different story. But you compare the Game Boy to the Game Gear, it's no contest.
Well, that's why you just get yourself a Genesis adapter, plug your ass into the wall, and now your mobile console is now a sit-in-the-corner console.
I do actually have 2 Game Gears that I need to get repaired. Neither of them works. One turns on, but I don't get a picture. The other one doesn't turn on at all, so I need to get those repaired. But the backlit screen on the Game Gear was great, but it wasn't as good quality as when Game Boy eventually did it.
Right.
When the SP came out, that is a really good quality screen on the SP.
Yep. Yeah, it's a real good one.
That's a good time.
That's the one I have. I have kind of like a grey SP.
I've got the one that looks like an NES, which I'm very
You lucky
happy with.
bastard.
Of course, it doesn't work like this. Something's wrong with the battery, so it doesn't work unless it's plugged in.
Ah,
But whatever. I have other ways of playing Game Boy Advance on the go. So
Yeah, I mean, maybe even on the Switch one day. When
One
they finally
day.
get around to adding more than like 2 consoles.
give us the Wii U eShop on Switch.
just do it.
Yeah, the virtual console, we need it. Like, they had it on the Wii, they had it on the Wii U, and suddenly they're just like, yeah, we're going to drip feed everything to you.
Yeah, it's not like they don't understand that we will buy that shit again.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, the thing is, even if they did both options, it's like, okay, you can pay the online subscription for this effectively rental service as long as, the service is active. But if you wanted to buy them and keep them forever, you can.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
what the other
I
2
would-
consoles do.
Yeah.
Because
But-
you've got the Xbox, you've got the Xbox Game Pass, and you've got PS Now, which allow you to do that. But you can also go to the store and just buy them.
Exactly. And that kind of makes the most sense because I kind of think, okay, it's good being able to play, for example, Super Metroid on the go. It's great to have that on my Switch, sure. But after the Nintendo Online service ends and it's gone forever,
It's gone forever.
it's gone
Yeah.
forever. Exactly. I suppose at that point you just hack the system when the service is fully down.
Right. Just dump them all on there anyway.
I mean,
Oh, yeah.
if you have the original Switch, it's totally doable.
Well, yeah. That is true. I mean, it's probably doable on the other one as well. It's probably just a bit more difficult.
Yeah, it's just like there's a hardware exploit on the original system.
Yeah.
Gen
I
1
do-
Switches are really expensive now.
I do actually have like a day 1 Switch.
Yeah, so do I.
Yeah. I don't have a day 1 Switch, but it's the model that was out on day 1.
Anyway, speaking of the Switch, there are a couple of interesting new releases actually in the Sega Ages collection.
Yes.
I've personally bought both of them. I know, Adam, you've bought one of them.
Yeah.
We have Columns 2, which also includes the original Columns as well. And we have, I'm going to let Adam pronounce this one.
Yeah, assuming that I'm pronouncing it right. Ichidantar or Ichidentar or Ichidantar or something. I don't know. Maybe if I said it with a Japanese accent, it'd sound, more
Racist.
correct.
I was saying,
Or it could sound very racist. Whichever.
Yeah, it's essentially one of the old puzzle action games. We covered one in an earlier episode, one of the Saturn ones.
Yeah.
Which was like a very, very good like mini game based puzzle game. And I've been playing a bit of this, which is a Mega Drive release. There's also an arcade version of the game, which is translated into English, which has pretty much exactly the same gameplay, but it's in English, and it's a lot of fun. It plays pretty much like the Saturn version, obviously with different mini games. And yeah, I put about probably a good 40 odd minutes into it, got up to stage 3.
Yeah, there's only 4 stages, and they gradually get longer and require more of you, and the puzzles get more difficult. However, it's pretty good. It's got a nice variety of puzzles.
Yeah, so you have that replayability because you're going to get different puzzles each time.
Yeah, I mean, you can kind of choose what puzzles you want as well. It's not difficult to, choose which you want, because there's like a rotating system where it randomly chooses, but it just goes in a circle and it's quite slow. And you can just choose exactly what you want, which is good because there's one minigame that's sort of broken. Like, I don't know if you tried it, Matt, but there's one where you have to sharpen a pencil.
I didn't get that one, no.
Well, you have to sharpen a pencil by rotating the analog, but it doesn't seem to work. But you can avoid it easy enough.
The analog stick on the Switch, it doesn't have a hell of a lot of travel. So
because it's based on... Well, it's not actually easy to use a D-pad either. I've tried both. And it's actually probably easier to use the analog, but even then it's still sort of impossible.
Yeah, there are other controllers which allow like quite a bit more travel in the analog stick with like a larger stick.
Yeah.
Which allows obviously for a bit more accuracy when you're kind of like only pressing something ever so slightly. So with one of those, it might be a bit better.
Yeah.
But it's definitely playable. The other game, as I said, is Columns 2, which probably doesn't need a hell of a lot of introduction. It is the arcade version, and it's Columns, basically. Everyone knows what Columns is. And like I say, it's got Columns 1 in there as well as like a free bonus. So
which is nice.
Yeah, which is useful because Column 1 is like the best one.
Yeah. Sega really, really do know how to put the effort into these re-releases. It's a shame Nintendo doesn't do the same thing with their old releases. As we said, the Switch Online is kind of lacking, but at least Sega are putting some effort into the Switch. Stephen and Ryan, have you picked up any of those games or any of the previous Sega Ages games?
No.
No, I had when you guys started saying Sega Ages originally, I had no idea what you were talking about.
Sega Ages is just like the brand they use for re-releasing old stuff. Not to be confused with like the collections they do, but when they release an individual game, they normally do it under the Sega Ages brand. They did it originally on the Saturn, where they re-released a bunch of Mega Drive games, but I think there are some on the PS2 on the Sega Ages.
Yes,
and yeah, and then I think maybe there are some on, I don't know, possibly like the Wii maybe, but there's now a bunch on the Switch.
Okay. I've got a couple of vintage collections on Xbox.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're really knocking it out of the park recently. They've had Alex Kidd in Miracle World. They've had Thunder Force 4, Phantasy Star.
A lot of them have some good effort points, and they've really kind of done stuff to make it worthwhile. Like, for example, on the shitty excuse for a virtual console, the NES Online, when they've done special edition versions, they've been like barely changed. Like, for example, I think on Zelda it puts you at the final boss with all your equipment, and that's what the special version is, and it's like, that's not really anything. That's something that you could hack the game and do that easy enough.
Yeah.
Like, it's really low effort.
It's
but
basically
with, like,
a game
Sega
cheat
Age,
code.
Yeah, I mean, like, for example, Outrun, they added like an unlockable system, so you can play the game, and every time you finish a route, you unlock like a new part for your car, which will make it go faster, turn better, have like a boost, and stuff like that. So you're actually getting enhancements to your car to make the harder routes easier, and it's a really nice little function. Or there's like difficulty modifiers and things like that, and they've put like a lot of effort into most of them. Some not so much. Like, I think with Puyo Puyo, they just added like online mode, which is still nice to have, but I mean, it's not a massive deal like they've done with some of the others. I think it's Phantasy Star or something like that. There's one game where it's like an RPG and it's a really obtuse Master System one, and they added a map to it, and then they made it so it was easier and you've got less random encounters and stuff like that. And just nice things to make it a little bit more accessible. You've got the original versions, but at the same time, they've kind of got these enhanced versions for, people that want an easier time.
Just quality of life improvements.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, basically. And they've announced what one of the next ones is going to be, which I'm quite excited about. It is the Shinobi arcade game.
Oh, nice.
Yes, I'm also excited for this. I love the Shinobi series, and I don't think there are really any Shinobi games I hate. I mean, Cyber Shinobi is a bit wonky, but they're generally pretty solid games. Now, the first one was available in the arcade, and it also had a Master System port. This is that first game, but the arcade version. So it's slightly more difficult because you don't have the health bar. I believe it's a one-hit kill, which presumably is just a way to make you put more money in. But then it's also got like adjusted levels, it's got more music in it as well. Like in the Master System version, there's really just one piece of music, but this has got more to that. I think they changed the bosses as well, and I think they do more with the magic. So rather than the magic only having like a very minor importance, I think there's more of an emphasis on that. So yeah, there's quite a fair bit of difference. And I've never played the arcade version before, so I'm quite excited to, see what it's all about.
It actually wouldn't surprise me, going by recent other Sega Ages releases, if they actually had the Master System version on there as well.
Yeah, I mean, that would be pretty neat. You can't get like the original one on any other collection, because obviously whenever they do collections, it's always the fucking Mega Drive. So
Yeah.
whilst you can play the Mega Drive Shinobi games, the Master System ones, you ain't going to be playing those again. So
Yeah, well,
it'd be nice if
luckily
they threw that in.
I've got the cartridge of the original one.
Yeah, me too. I've actually got every single one for the Mega Drive and Master System and Saturn on cart.
Cool.
Although I am going to get rid of the Mega Drive and Master System ones. I'm in the process of selling my Mega Drive and Master System games. But that's another thing. I might keep the Shinobi games though, just because it's sort of like a collection at this point. But we'll see.
Yeah.
I do really like the Shinobi games though. They're neat. Even the 3DS one wasn't that bad.
I've got the 3DS one, but I've never played it.
Yeah, it's a pretty solid action game. It's not as good as the old ones, and there are some bits which are a bit iffy. Because it's got like these, like these bonus game type things using the 3D. And my eyes couldn't really adjust to the 3D that well. So I found it a bit difficult. But
I always turn 3D off
least-
anyway.
yeah. Well, like it's got these bits where you're running into distance and you've got to jump over obstacles with your horse, or there's another thing which I can't quite remember what it's all about. But it's got some like 3D sections where you're going away from the camera, so you you don't need the perspective, but having the perspective makes it easier. However, it's not as easy as it should be, at least for me. But as I say, it's still a pretty neat game.
Yeah, and it's nice to see the original getting a bit of love from Sega. So that should be coming. Does it have a release date?
Nope. As far as I'm aware, it just says that's going to be the next Sega Ages release in Japan. So it's just whenever it comes. I mean, they
Cool.
seem to be a bit more frequent than, Nintendo's eShop offerings. So probably within a month.
Yeah, they seem to be releasing like 2 games every 2 months, roughly.
Yeah, and then sometimes you kind of get more. Like, I think in August they had, maybe like 4 releases or something. But the good thing is when they release them, they do tend to release like a couple at a time, 2 or 3 at a time.
Yeah, and they're fairly cheap as well. I mean, in the UK, they're $5.99.
Yeah. I think they're about €6 or €7 over here, so pretty cheap. And they go on sale as well, which is good, so you can often get them for like half price if you're willing to wait a little bit. And then
Cool.
paying a few quid for these isn't too bad at all.
Not too shabby.
No. Also, we had another classic release, which is the arcade version of Castlevania.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, it was part of the Arcade Archive series, so it's not Konami that's doing it, it's Hamster. And it's not good. I mean, Not the actual game itself. The actual game itself is effectively just the NES Castlevania, just a bit harder because you take more damage and stuff. But it's janky as all hell. I don't know whether it's just me, but the Arcade Archives games are really badly ported. Like, everything's just so clunky, like all the menus and things like that. Just doing stuff is a pain. So, like,
just
if you
the
want to do...
idea of Castlevania on the arcade is wacky.
Well, the thing is, well, like, adding credits and then, you know, playing the game is really weird. Like, I think it's... I can't remember what buttons it is, but it always feels, like, awkward. Just, like, inserting credits. And it's like... You need a jump button and an attack button. That's 2 buttons used out of the entire controller. You can't make it a little bit more convenient. And if you want to save state, you've got to go through this slow, clunky menu. So, you know, if you actually want to use save states, it's a pain in the ass. And you will need to use save states because it's a difficult game. You can put in infinite credits, of course, but you go back a little. You don't just respawn, which makes it pretty much pointless.
It's just weird.
Yeah, I mean, thing is as well, compared with Konami's recent Castlevania collection, they added so much stuff to that for, like, quality of life and things like that.
Yeah.
And this, in comparison, just feels garbage. And when the arcade version and the NES version is almost identical, you know, barring stuff like credits and stuff, and, you know, you take more damage, you know, you really want to just get the Castlevania collection.
Yeah, I mean, it confuses me that this game wasn't in the Castlevania collection.
Yeah, well, I kind of think that Konami can be a bit confusing sometimes. They don't necessarily include stuff that you would have thought would have been included. Like, I can't remember what game it was, but there was also, like, another Castlevania game that was missed out from the collection. And same with, like, Contra. They missed out, like, the Saturn Contra game, but then they included another game which was basically the same as another one. And it just seems a bit like a waste.
Yeah, Konami are very much hit and miss.
Yeah, it's a bit weird. I mean, in fairness to them, the collections are pretty good. So I'm not necessarily blaming that on them. But this arcade version's pretty poor. I got it because I'm a big Castlevania fan. And I don't think I'll be playing it again. I've deleted it from my Switch just to save space and stuff. And I don't think I'll be reloading it. I'd rather just play the Konami Castlevania collection instead.
Yeah, did you finally pick that up?
I haven't picked it up yet, but if I did want to play the original Castlevania, then I'd play on that. Because I will play it next time I see it on a sale.
Yeah, it's definitely a good collection.
Yeah.
And Konami have been doing well with these collections, and then they put out something like Contra Hardcore, in which you can't shoot without your guns overheating in a Contra game, which is stupid.
I think generally now, as far as I can tell, when it comes to games, they're fine with collections these days. I mean, the Silent Hill collection aside. But, you know, generally when it comes to re-releasing their old stuff, they're not too bad. But when it comes to actually making new games, they seem to be janky.
Well, that's because they don't want to make games. They want to make gambling machines.
There you go.
Yeah. Like they announced was it a Silent Hill that's getting a new slot machine?
It's a Silent Hill slot machine. They're not even bothering with the pachinko this time.
I mean, in fairness to them, you've got companies like EA which are trying to hide gambling in games, and then you've got
at least
Konami
they're just honest about it.
Fuck it, we're just going to make an actual gambling machine. We're not even going to try and hide it.
But the thing is, everyone got excited because people noticed that they'd like renewed the Silent Hill name thing. So everyone thought, "Oh, what's it going to be? What's it going to be?" And this,
to be fair, this
slot machine.
Even if they didn't make anything, they'd probably still renew it. Like Nintendo keeps renewing Eternal Darkness, And people keep going, oh, maybe they're doing something with Eternal Darkness.
No.
They just don't want
But
to lose
they've
it.
renewed it like about 3 times now, and they've not even done a fucking port of it.
Put it on the Switch. I will buy that immediately.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, they should port it or do something with it.
I mean, they should port everything to the Switch, honestly.
But I think it's just a case of keeping the license just in case they wanted to use it.
No, it's keeping the license so that nobody else can have it.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
like,
not even that they want to use it. It's just so no one else can have it.
right, you're talking about the industry where a person who made a game isn't allowed to make another one because somebody else owns the license, doesn't want to do anything with it. They just don't want him to have it.
Yeah. I know. It's sad. I mean, I kind of think Eternal Darkness could have been a great franchise. I mean, even a port would be nice, but it's a really cool mythos, and I think making another one of those would be really, really good. I actually had chosen it as my pick for this month, and I only changed it because we've already got 2 GameCube games. So having 3 might be a little bit too GameCube focused, but Eternal Darkness is fantastic.
I mean, GameCube had a lot of good games on it.
It did. Retrobit are releasing some new controllers. They're for use with, they're USB, so for the computer. I think they also plug into the Switch and maybe some of the other modern consoles, presumably if they're USB.
I'm sure you can plug them into a Steam Link.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was about to say probably not any of the other 2 flagship consoles, just because they don't accept third-party controllers, or they don't accept generic USB controllers.
Yeah, but like you probably use it with a Steam Link. Yeah, I mean, aside from the Switch, that's probably it.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, they're, fashioned after old stuff.
Yeah.
In which case, it's probably only good for old stuff. Like, you've got Mega Drive controllers, which will be good for, like, obviously playing the Sega Mega Drive games, which they release on every console. But also playing, like, the NES and SNES games as well, I suppose could be quite good. You've also got a Saturn controller as well in the collection. And presumably that'll be a bit more useful with some more stuff. Like maybe the indie games and stuff that you can find on the eShop, it'd probably work all right with.
Mm.
And what makes them different is that they're pink. And it's basically an incentive they're doing for breast cancer awareness. So I think a chunk of the funds is going towards breast cancer.
And it's the National Breast Cancer Foundation and not Susan G. Komen. So, they're actually worth supporting.
Yeah, definitely.
That's the one thing is Susan B. Komen is awareness. It's not a terrible foundation, but it's not what you think it's going to be.
I mean, 90% of the money goes into the company's pocket, so
it's awareness. That's all they really do is awareness. It's literally advertising. They do self-advertising, which in turn is effectively just that's how they bring awareness, is they self-advertise about a specific thing.
Right.
Whereas
whereas the National Breast Cancer Foundation, from what I understand, puts most of the money they receive towards research
and stuff. Yeah.
And that's a big deal.
But the controllers do actually look really nice.
Yeah, they look really well made. It's a nice design. I like the stylized ribbon in the center.
I was looking at those; they're pretty.
If I hadn't had to just buy a bunch of computer parts, then I might have picked a few of these up.
Yeah, I was kind of tempted because, Saturn. However, I don't know what I'd use it for, because those kind of things I use my 8-bit dough for, and I know I'd get it and wouldn't use it. If it had like a kind of a link or something where I could actually plug it into my Saturn, then I'd get it, because I'd use it as a controller for the Saturn, but I'm probably not going to use it for anything, unfortunately. But I have been promoting it like pretty much everywhere, to be honest, because they do look great and it's for a great cause.
Yeah. I mean, I'm in the same boat as you. I use my 8-bit dough for the old stuff, so I probably wouldn't have much use. But yeah, it's definitely worth promoting.
With that super duper choice D-pad.
Yeah.
The Retro-bit controllers are good as well. I have a Mega Drive and a Saturn one, the regular black ones that they released a while back, and they are like pretty much exactly the same as the original controllers. They've really put a lot of work into making them authentic.
Nice.
Yeah, I've heard that the Retro-bit controls are pretty good quality, so it's good that these are the Retro-bit ones and not just shit.
Yeah.
Because it would be disappointing if, you end up getting them and it was like, okay, it's just a crappy thing. Because, being a quality controller, people are going to want to get it anyway.
Yeah, it'll be a good controller. I mean, I'm assuming it will just be a recolored version of the ones that they released earlier in the year.
Mm.
But yeah, there is one more piece of news. It's kind of not really retro related, but it kind of is because re-release. Well, it's a new game in the retro franchise. Doom Eternal has been delayed until next year.
Damn.
Yeah, is it February 2020?
March.
From what I remember.
March, yeah.
March
Okay,
2020 because it comes out the same day as Animal Crossing.
Yeah.
Why the wait?
I think it's just to tweak it and sort out performance things maybe. The Switch version is getting delayed more, which seems to indicate it's probably a performance thing because that's where you're going to struggle with the Switch version is performance.
Right.
But I don't think they've really said the reason why. What they are doing though is that for the people that have pre-ordered the game, they're going to get Doom 64 for free.
Oh,
because
nice.
Doom 64 is not just coming out on the Switch; it's going to be multi-console. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I can't remember whether it was PC or whether it was PC and the other consoles. I'll have to double check that. But they are basically saying, "Here you go, here's this for free." Basically, we're sorry.
Because I knew that was coming out on the Switch. I didn't know it was coming out on other stuff. I will absolutely pick up Doom 64. It is a really, really good version of Doom, hampered by the N64 controller. If I can play that with a mouse and keyboard officially, I mean, I talked about this last month as well, or the month before, where I do have a PC version, but it's unofficial, that I can play with mouse and keyboard. So being able to get an official version that I can still play with mouse and keyboard would be great.
Yeah.
Okay, it says if you pre-order now, you'll get a copy of N64 Classic Doom 64 for free on any format. Not just the Switch.
Nice.
So
I mean,
it seems like they're releasing it on everything, which is
cool.
good.
I can get it for my iPod.
Well, I'm presuming it just means any format that Doom Eternal is also on. I imagine. I'm not sure when Doom 64 is actually available. Presumably Doom 64 isn't delayed because I think that was supposed to be coming out in November. So I think the plan was to release it the same month as Doom Eternal.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure they would delay Doom 64 just because Doom Eternal isn't ready.
Right.
But then, I don't know. Because then maybe it's less likely to appeal to the pre-order people if they can get it in November rather than wait 4 months to play Doom 64. I don't know.
I'm just... Doom 64 has been delayed, so if you pre-order Doom 64 now, you'll get Doom Eternal for free.
Yeah. Oh well.
But yeah, I've still no interest in pre-ordering that. I need to see if Bethesda have fucked it up.
Yeah.
Microtransactions.
After Youngblood.
Yeah, after Youngblood, after Fallout, they've... Well, yeah, they messed up Fallout because of, Fallout 76. They messed up Elder Scrolls because of the fucking stupid... What was it called? The stupid phone thing, which is also coming out on the Switch.
Oh, Blades.
Yeah. Which, presumably, the Switch version is also going to be the same bollocks. because the previews seem to indicate that it's exactly the same as the Bollocks' phone version. They also messed up Wolfenstein with Youngblood. So now it seems like they need to mess up Doom just to kind of ruin another one of their series. So maybe they fucked up Doom. But we'll see. But yeah, you probably do right to wait. However, I'm definitely getting Doom 64. I really want to play that.
Yeah, me too.
I've never actually played Doom 64 properly before. I've played like the first level. Briefly. And it'd be nice to play it with hopefully updated controls. Rather than those stupid tank controls it had on the N64.
Yeah, I mean, you'd probably be better with it on console because you do prefer to use controllers for first-person games, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, it's not just that. I do like first-person games on the PC. I just don't really play much PC these days, and I don't really have much interest in it.
Yeah.
However, yeah, I mean, these days I think the Joy-Cons and stuff are actually okay for FPS games, so I'll be happy with that. It'll do.
Cool. Well, I think that's all the news topics out of the way.
And it's quite nice that Doom leads us into our main topic, which is Halloween.
Yes.
Very appropriate.
So, as I said earlier, we've got 4 horror-themed kind of games. Well, spooky games. Well, not all spooky. They are
spooky.
Four sort of spooky games for you.
We're selling this well.
Yeah. So we will take a quick break and we will get into our first game.
My pick for this one was Luigi's Mansion, which is kind of why I say, the games are spooky-ish, because like Luigi's Mansion is kind of horror thematic, but it's not scary, really.
I mean, it's basically like a Nintendo child's remake of Resident Evil, sort of.
Kind of.
Like Resident Evil meets Ghostbusters.
Resident Evil Jr.
It does have like a spooky kind of atmosphere at times.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it's it's also just a really, really good game. Like
Such a good game.
I replaying it for this, I was just reminded of how much I really enjoyed this game.
I won't go that far, but it is decent.
I mean, it's, the fifth best-selling GameCube game of all time. So, some people liked it.
It's gotten 2 sequels.
Yeah, it's so it got the Dark Moon on the 3DS, and it's Luigi's Mansion 3 is coming out on the Switch, I think on Halloween this year.
Yep. Oh, and a remake. It got a remake too.
Oh yeah, it was remade for the 3DS.
Yeah, so it's got to be worth something.
Have any of you played the 3DS version?
No.
I have not.
No, I was emulating on PC until it died.
Okay, because I have not played the 3DS version, but I've played the sequel on 3DS, and that one was surprisingly it felt surprisingly good to play. Like I was surprised that the control scheme was adapted so well to 3DS. But anyway, the first game, it's just a fun romp. Mario's gone missing again. Luigi goes to this mansion that he, quote unquote, won in a contest he didn't enter, and it's full to the brim with ghosts. And he has to take his vacuum cleaner and suck up the ghosts.
The Poltergust 3000.
And it's a fun game. It's got, good mechanics. It's not overly long. I think it only takes 5 or 6 hours to get through.
Yeah, you can bust through it real quick.
Yeah.
Some of the ghosts are really interesting. There's a room full of musical instruments, and you have to tap on them to start them all up. And once they're all playing, they play the original World 1-1 music.
Is that the ghost? Is that the one that you summon the dancing ghost to?
No, that's the one that plays the piano.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the portrait ghosts are generally pretty good in it. There's some good ones. I like the one on the dining table. You know, the fat one that's just eating all the time.
The one that's eating.
Yeah. They are pretty cool. What I have issue with, though, is that, like, I don't want to start from the negative, because I do enjoy it. But I kind of feel like with, you two especially going, oh, it's fantastic, it's great. I want to just go on the other side of things and go a little bit negative to start off. I think that the first half of the game is really good. And then towards the end, it starts getting a bit iffier. Like some of the ghosts, like especially the boos, have like an extraordinary amount of health, and it just takes forever to get them down. And then there are some bosses where it just feels a bit annoying. Like, for example, the final boss, you have to kind of do sort of specific things, and it feels awkward to do. You kind of know what to do, but again, it's just right. It feels sort of janky, and it feels like it's a game of two halves. Like, the first half, I liked a lot, and then the second half, I found that the second half just kind of pissed me off more than I enjoyed it. And like with that final boss, with all the bullshit, the problem is that when you retry, you have to make your way to the boss room again. You have to watch a lengthy cutscene just to try again. And it's like, shit, stick a checkpoint or something before the boss. I find it a bit annoying in the second half. I don't know if the 3DS version kind of amends those things, but I find that the very final part of the game contains a lot of annoying stuff.
And then I can agree with that it does lose some momentum as you get further in. And there is the boos, especially when they've got 300 health, and
then they disappear, and you've got to find them again. And
yeah, they can go from room to room, and you're having to chase them around. And sometimes they'll go into a room you don't have unlocked.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is fair. That's,
like, I don't think it necessarily makes the game bad. It's just that I feel it puts a bit of a dampener on it towards the end.
Yeah, like I said, it loses
momentum. By the time I got to the end, I was like, thank fuck that's over. And it's a shame, because when I started it, the atmosphere's great, and that first half of the game is so strong.
Right.
It's really fun to play, because it does feel like sort of Ghostbusters in a child-friendly Resident Evil. It's really good. But then, instead of going down the route of maybe having more difficult puzzles or more difficult things to do in order to beat the boss, instead it just opts for like larger health bars or making things that's slightly more awkward. And I don't know if they ran out of ideas towards the end, or whether they just had time constraints because it was a launch game or what, but it feels like all the best ideas and all the best stuff is at the beginning, and then towards the end it just kind of feels like they just kind of did whatever they could to inflate the difficulty to make it seem like a final part of the game. If you know what I mean.
Right.
I only really saw like the first hour or so. Like I said, I was emulating it on PC, and then it died. I got as far as the boss baby, which I couldn't beat because it was just throwing crap at me and it just kept hitting me. But I did kind of enjoy that first hour, but the problem I was having was with the controls. Now, with a GameCube controller, it might be better, but I was playing this on 360 controller because I don't have any way to plug a GameCube controller into my PC. And I just couldn't really get properly to grips with the sucking mechanic, with the vacuum mechanic. With a 360 controller, it just felt awkward.
Yeah, I think that might be partly to do with the controller, to be honest. It did take me a little bit of time in order to get used to the controls and how things generally work, because you've got to pull away from them and just kind of go in like the opposite direction of where they're going. And it's a very specific kind of thing, but I don't think it's necessarily too difficult. I think it may have been your controller. By the time I got to the baby at any point, it was definitely fine for me.
Yeah, maybe with a little bit more, it would have clicked for me. But
Yeah.
I just kind of found it counterintuitive, at least on that pad.
Yeah,
the rest of the game,
it was the controller or the fact that it was emulated, maybe.
Aside from that, though, I did like the atmosphere of it. I mean, obviously, it's not like a full horror game, but it was a bit spooky, and I really, really like what my favorite thing about it was Luigi's nervous humming of the theme tune.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love that so much.
Yeah, it's cool. What I also like is the environment, because it takes cues from the original Resident Evil, where you've just got like this one big mansion, and parts of it are sealed off, or you need to go through different areas, and then parts open up. So as you get through the game, because I think there are 4 areas, if I remember correctly, like 4 main areas.
I think
So each time you kind of get through to a different area of the mansion and unlock a different area. So you've got access to more things. And that's great because you have this kind of familiarity with the mansion, and you can navigate your way around a lot easier. And then obviously as things start to open up, you are experiencing new stuff. And I think that's really cool, because I say the original Resident Evil game does that, and it's good because by the end of the game you can navigate the mansion perfectly, and it's the same in Luigi's Mansion.
Right.
I think it does it really well.
Yeah, I mean, even now I can navigate the Spencer Mansion in my head pretty well.
Yeah, and Luigi's Mansion is basically the same.
And I've not played Resident Evil in about a year.
Thing is, as well, what was interesting with Luigi's Mansion is that, as I mentioned before, it was a launch title for the system.
Mm-hmm.
And it was such a weird choice for a launch title, because, you normally you'd expect like a Mario game or maybe a Zelda. But like Luigi at the time was basically nothing. I mean, like now, thanks to memes and stuff, Luigi's a bit more of a bigger deal and people care about Luigi. But back then it was just like, what? A Luigi game in a mansion, like a sort of a horror game with Luigi? What? Can we just have a Mario platformer? And I think people were a little turned off by it at first, because they were kind of expecting a big game to launch with a GameCube. But it was a solid launch title.
Well, part of the reason that it was a launch title was it was showing off basically the power of the GameCube with the lighting in the game. Because the lighting in Luigi's Mansion is outstanding. Like the mechanics behind it, with the flashlight and the lightning and just everything.
Yeah.
It really is a bit of a spectacle when you take into account that it's on the GameCube.
Right.
So that's really what it was, is that was a hardware showcase.
Yeah.
Whereas Super Mario Sunshine wasn't going to show off as much in that regard. It was more just the next level of Mario.
Yeah. I think the biggest problem with Luigi's Mansion is, as you mentioned before, it's not an amazingly long game, and I think as a launch title, when the lineup is pretty small, because I don't remember there being that many games at launch, people would have beaten the game and then okay, now what? Because I don't think it's a very replayable game. It's a game that, a lot of people do replay, but it's not one that you finish and I'm going to jump straight back into this.
Well, the game has a decent amount of replayability, because at the end of the game, spoiler alert, when you get rid of all the ghosts, Luigi does get a mansion. You rid of all the ghosts and all the money you collect, and because I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think you have to capture every single boo. You just have to capture most of them.
Yeah, you've got to capture 40.
And I think there's 100.
No, it's 50.
Is it 50? Okay. It's been a while since I played through. I was just going off of memory. But if you get rid of all the boos and you basically beat all the bosses basically super duper efficiently, And basically, the better you play the game and the more thoroughly you play the game, you get better endings. And it's not a huge thing. It's very much a Wario Land, Wario World scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's pretty much just a case of here's a picture of a slightly better mansion.
Yeah, and it's essentially going for high scores. So if you're into that sort of thing, it's a good thing then that the game is relatively short.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if it would be enough to get you to, I'd say, replay straight away, but it'd certainly be enough to make you want to replay at a future time, I suppose.
I mean, short games are kind of like a real benefit to some people. I mean, like myself, I prefer something that I can be in like a relatively short time, like Resident Evil. If you're playing that for the first time, you're probably looking at 8 hours. If you're playing it on repeat, unless you speedrun it, you're probably looking at about 3 or 4.
Yeah, I mean, the only problem with Luigi's Mansion, I'd say, is not necessarily that it's short, because, you know, as you say, some games benefit from being shorter, and I kind of think with Luigi's Mansion, if it did go on for longer, you would get sick of it. However, I think the problem was because it was a launch title, and the options available were quite limited. That's when it becomes a bit more like, okay, this is one of like 2 or 3 games I've picked up at launch, and I've beaten this one just in an afternoon.
Yeah.
Now what am I going to play on my GameCube?
Trying to think, because I want to say there was something about a second mode after you beat the game.
On the GameCube one?
Yeah.
Well, I think there's a hard mode.
You now have the option to restart Luigi's Mansion 2 ways. The first option lets you go back to the regular Luigi's Mansion. The second option, called Another Mansion in Japanese, lets you restart the game, and presumably some things in the mansion have been changed around. Okay.
Is that just a 3DS version? Because I don't remember that.
No, I think that's the GameCube version. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it's I think it's essentially a Master Quest.
Yeah.
Like
things just get swapped around.
Yeah, things are switched around a little bit, so it's a vaguely fresh playthrough. But also, I want to say the bosses are a little harder. And again, I could be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it's still probably not enough to make you want to replay it straight away. At least for me. I'd say when I beat the game, especially because of that latter half, it was more like, okay, I'm done with this. And I don't think I have any desire to replay the game at all in the future. But I did enjoy it enough, at least, especially that first half, where I do want to play Luigi's Mansion 3. Probably not like on release, but, you know, I will play at some point, I reckon.
I like it. And plus it introduced one of the more underrated characters in the Mario franchise, Egad.
Oh, Egad. Oh, yeah. Wasn't Egad the guy who did Flood as well?
Yes.
It just suddenly came to me. I thought he was the inventor of Flood.
Egad also, and I don't know if this is a spin-off. So there is the Mario Kart GP arcade, and one of the racers in that, I think it's like a boss racer, is essentially Mecha Mario, if I'm correct. And I think, unless I'm losing my mind, that was also built by Egad.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
I think he's in some
maybe that was a mod that maybe I'm thinking of a mod that would just slap that badge on there.
Yeah, I think he's in Mario and Luigi as well.
Is he?
Yeah, he shows up in one of them at like a cafe or something.
Yeah, I kind of vaguely remember that. But yeah, he's quite a cool character. Maybe he'll appear in other Switch games aside from Luigi's Mansion 3. Maybe in a new Mario game. Who knows?
Yeah, no, I just verified. Yeah, no, it's Robo Mario, and apparently he was built by Egad, as he has the badge on his hat where the M normally is.
Nice.
One thing in Luigi's Mansion I found quite funny was one rather questionable animation. You know when Luigi's kind of like checking drawers and cupboards and stuff like that? He humps them for some reason. It just looks like he's humping them, and I don't know why.
I think it's like he's struggling to open it, like he's supposed to be
like he's trying to lift it.
I think he's a sexual deviant.
It could be.
I think he just thinks, I've won this mansion. If I want to hump the drawers, I'll hump the damn drawers.
Who's gonna stop him?
The ghost,
Exactly.
evidently.
Apparently, they're like,
I
"Hey
mean, he
man,
has
stop!"
been searching that mansion for a while. If he needs to get his urges satisfied, then
Yeah.
You know what? Ghosts are some people's kink. It's just what it is. We don't judge.
yeah. I mean, it'd explain all the ectoplasm everywhere.
Oh God. I think I want to talk about something else now.
Yeah. Well, I think we've said a lot about Luigi's Mansion. As I enjoyed it, I don't get the it's a fantastic game that a lot of people say. I mean, it is, but I think it gets ruined a little bit in the second half. But it's definitely a good premise, and it's a cool little game. It's a nice little spin-off series.
Yeah, I am definitely going to keep an eye out for a cheap GameCube version, which I tried to find, which is why that's why I ended up emulating it, because it wasn't very cheap at all. But if I see one, then I'll probably pick it up.
Yeah, it used to be cheap. It used to be like, $15, $20. And then, as we got closer to the sequel, it jumped up in price.
Mm.
The demand was there.
But yeah, I think that is everything we've got to say about Luigi's Mansion by the sound of it. Shall we jump on to the next game?
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay, so we will take a quick musical break, and then we will get into my pick. Okay, for my game this month, I am stanning Sega because the other three guys have all picked Nintendo games or games on Nintendo consoles, and we need to shift that bias a little bit. So we are going with a Sega game.
It's not me that does that.
Weirdly, this Sega game is a port of an NES game, so I guess we're still kind of on a Nintendo kick, but this is Ghostbusters for the Master System. Now, like I said, it is a port of the NES game, and the NES game is terrible. Like, you can just search any YouTube video. There's an AVGN episode all about how bad it is, and is just janky as all hell. But for the Master System version, they actually cut a lot of the jank. They made a lot of improvements to it and made it a much more playable game. Now, in this, you actually play as one of three Ghostbusters. There are only three Ghostbusters on the team. They've, for whatever reason, left off Winston, because the three Ghostbusters that you have are identical and they're all white. So you don't have Winston there. And it's almost kind of like 4 games in one. In fact, it was advertised as 4 games in one as well.
That explains a lot.
You basically start off by choosing your equipment. You're given a budget, and you choose equipment that you want to take with you, which is, it gives it kind of like a strategy element, because there's some stuff which you will need and some stuff which is essentially kind of useless. But over repeated playthroughs, reading the manual, you learn which things you need and which things you don't. And then you go into a map screen, and buildings will start flashing red, and you need to drive to these buildings and suck up the ghosts there, and that'll give you kind of like money. And going to those places, you've got like a driving mini game where you've got to avoid cars and any
like rocks and stuff.
Yeah, and any ghosts that you've run over on the map screen, because there's ghosts like going all over the map screen, they will appear when you're driving, and you can suck them up if you've got the appropriate equipment for your car. And basically the ghosts are all going to this central location called Zool, Which I mean, in the film, Zool isn't a building, but this is where they're going to. And once the ghost energy, they call it PK energy, in the game, reaches a certain point, basically that center location will be flashing red, and you can enter it. You go into another little mini game where the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man is guarding the entrance to the building, and you've got to kind of swerve in between them. Then you've got yet another mini game, which is the really, really annoying one, where you've got to go upstairs avoiding ghosts. And there's one in particular that throws plates, and that is an absolute bastard. And you will die a lot. And then at the top, you finally get the boss battle, which is actually quite difficult if you don't know what you're doing with it. And you've got to defeat, they call it Gorza in the game. I'm not sure why, because in the film it's Goza. But you've got to defeat Gorza, and then that's the end of the game. So, yeah, it is kind of a lot of different games in one. And that and Populous are probably my two most played games on the Master System. I really, really love both of those games. I believe you guys had a different opinion of the game, though, didn't you?
Well, if that is the only game you played along with Populous, then that probably explains why you are how you are today.
Oh, it's not the only games that I played, but those were the ones that I put the most time into.
Yeah, I mean, what I will say is, do you remember when we played TMNT?
Vividly.
And that, unfortunately, and that game, whilst it started out sort of okay, as it progressed, you were like, is this a Turtles game? And it very much went far from the source material. Well, with this, I would say it's a complete opposite. It kind of gets closer and closer to the source material. It starts out well, and it sticks to the source material really well. The look and the sound of it is pretty much spot on, as far as you can get with a NES game, or an SNES game, or whatever. And I think they nailed that. The gameplay, on the other hand, I didn't really enjoy it so much. The car thing was fine, but a bit annoying. The sucking up ghosts was fine. It's I didn't hate the game. It's not like TMNT where I say this is a bad game. It's not a bad game, by any means. It's just that I played in it and it felt like I was sort of going through the motions, and I just didn't really have a great deal of fun with it. I know you're a big horror aficionado, so, maybe playing a Ghostbusters game in itself is something that will get you pumped, whereas I'm not really that into Ghostbusters, so the fact that I was playing a Ghostbusters game didn't really affect it. It's not like, for me playing a Lovecraft game, I get really into it, just by virtue of it being Lovecraft. Whereas this, it's just kind of okay, it's a game and it's Ghostbusters. Let's see what it's all about.
I think for me, it's kind of it wasn't so much that it was a horror game, because it's kind of not.
Ghostbusters,
Yeah.
I know a lot of people have a big kind of connection to Ghostbusters and they really love it. Whereas I enjoyed the films, but, I don't really have any desire to watch them. I don't, get excited for new installments or any kind of spin-off merchandise. It's just, it was a decent film for its time.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that I'm a huge Ghostbusters fan. I mean, I did like the films as a kid, and that's why I picked up the game. But going back to what I said earlier about short games, I really enjoy games that I can kind of complete in one sitting, and Ghostbusters and Populous are games that I was actually good at, and I could finish in kind of half an hour to 40 minutes. And that was kind of the appeal to me, especially with Ghostbusters. You do kind of have a thing where whatever money you have at the end of the game, it gives you a password so that the next time you play the game, you can start with that amount of money that you've earned on your next playthrough. And
so if you're up on the deal, you can,
Yes.
get a benefit, by the time you start.
Yeah. And that combined with the short play time, like I say, I could, if I wanted to sit down and just finish a game, I could pop that in and be done in half an hour, and I'd have a good time with it. What did the guys on the other side of the pond think about it?
Well, I made the boo-boo when I played the NES version.
Oh, that version is horrible.
It's so bad.
Yeah.
I never unlocked the Zool building. It took me a minute to figure out exactly what I was doing. But I got a really, really heavy 2600 vibe, and I'm thinking that the NES was either programmed at the same time they were doing the NES bit or the 2600 build, or it was actually ported from the 2600.
Well, no, it didn't come out on the 2600.
According to what I read, it did.
Oh, did it?
Yeah.
I wasn't aware of that. I might actually have to check that out. But yeah, I have played the NES version, and it is not good. It's ugly. It has a lot of issues that the Master System version just doesn't have. I believe the C64 version is based on the NES version, whereas the Spectrum version is based on the Master System version. So if you're looking for kind of another version of that game, either the Master System or the Spectrum version are the ones that you want to go for.
But you know why the Master System version is better than the NES version?
Because you want to fight.
Because Sega does what Nintendo.
Yes.
So I played the Master System version, and I didn't have a clue what was going on. I kind of got the gist of the loadout part in the beginning, but actually playing the game, I had no idea what was going on. I couldn't figure out what what I was supposed to be doing. It was a mess.
Oh, this is why I said to everyone at the start, make sure you read the manual, because this is back in the day when you really, really did need to read manuals in order to understand what was happening. And the manual will give you a lot of information about all of the different items and how each minigame works. So I would say it is pretty much essential for understanding this game, unless you have someone explaining to you.
Right.
Because once you know what's going on, it all makes complete sense. I mean, it does still have janky sections, but it is each individual segment is easy once you know what's happening.
Yeah, that probably would have helped. I mean, it's not that hard to parse what you need to do. I mean, you can roll around and do a couple things, and you just sort of figure out what is what. It's just that on the NES, everything is... I mean, you called it janky, and that's being really fucking nice.
Yeah, well, the Master System version does retain some of that jank, but it fixes most of it.
Well, also, I looked up some screenshots. It's just more visually appealing.
Yeah. I mean, the game starts with a perfect recreation of the Ghostbusters logo. And you have theme music as well, the actual theme music, and it's a really, really good 8-bit rendition. And it even has a little bouncing ball on the title screen that kind of bounces on the lyrics of the song.
Yeah.
In time with the music, which is it's a really, really kind of charming intro to a game.
I might have to go and play the Master System version now because
definitely.
I don't want to be unfair. But yeah, I'm playing this and I'm thinking this is worse than TMNT, and Matt knows it.
Yeah, that particular version probably is. If you had kind of got to the end of that, you would have seen the amazing end screen, which says congratulation. Which is that they fix that in the Master System, but yeah, the NES version does say congratulation at the end of it.
That's amazing.
That is so funny.
That's amazing.
But yeah, my favorite part of the game is the map screen stuff. I like going around kind of like stopping all the ghosts because the more ghosts that enter the center, that enter Zool, the higher the PK meter goes. And basically, it is kind of like a waiting game, but you need to get $10,000 before Zool opens up. Otherwise, you won't be able to get into the building. I believe it does give a reason. I think like the mayor won't let you into the building without like $10,000 or something like that. So you do kind of like have to plan stuff out. And
well, then what's the point of the PK meter?
Well, that's just it's just kind of like it slowly builds up, and the more ghosts that get into the center, the faster that goes up. But you can stop the ghosts by driving on them. But the more you drive around, the longer the driving sections when you actually enter a location will be. So you do have that strategy element of, do I stop these ghosts, or do I have like a super long kind of like driving section, or do I kind of like not stop them and, you know, I can get to places quicker? So you do have that strategy. At its core, the main gameplay loop, it is like a strategy kind of like gameplay. And you've got to kind of like determine when the best time to go to the shop is to get new items, or go to the HQ to empty your traps. And the more you kind of like move around, like I said, the longer those driving sections are going to be. And that meter's going up all the time. So you do kind of like have to plan stuff out.
Like, I can see where it would be a good game in spirit. I think like I said, I think I need to play a better version of the game.
Yeah. Definitely.
And that is my failure.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably better than the NES version, but in honesty, I don't think it's a great game, but it's not a bad game. Like, there are many games that we've played for this podcast which I've actively disliked, but Ghostbusters isn't one of them. It was just kind of fine.
Yeah, and like I said, if you are looking for something that you can knock out in half hour, 40 minutes, then, you know, you can get some fun out of it.
Cool.
Well, is there anything else that anyone wants to add about Ghostbusters?
It's a pretty straightforward. Well, okay, it's not a super high content game. It's not straightforward in its own right. But at the end of the day, it's not very much game. Just not a bad thing, like you said. Just being able to sit down, play a game, and be done, like all the way through, is kind of nice every once in a while. Although it'd probably make you kind of mad if you bought that game, you know, back in the day for $50-$60 in, $1987. You'd probably be really mad about it.
I don't remember how much it cost back in the day. I mean, we wouldn't have paid like full price like that for it. But
I mean, I'll tell you what the scariest thing about this game is that it got a Nintendo seal of quality.
Yeah, that
I don't know what the hell that's all about.
Well, I think they stuck that on everything. I think TMNT's probably got one.
I think it does.
Right, apparently games back then cost about $50, so I mean that's maybe 35-40 quid back then.
But a lot of systems did have budget games as well. And yeah.
I'm not sure this would have been a budget game because it's licensed, but I don't know.
We definitely wouldn't have paid that amount, so I might have got it in the sale or something, or maybe I got it secondhand.
Yeah, I wouldn't have fucking paid that amount for this.
I mean, I'm going back like 30 odd years. I don't remember where I got these games from. I still have my original cartridge though.
Nice
one.
So yeah, I think that is everything we can say about Ghostbusters. So I think it's time to move on to our next pick, which is Ryan's pick.
Correct. at the beginning of the season 2 of the Retro Odyssey, we covered Metroid Prime, and for Halloween, it only seems fitting that we go to the scary installment of the Prime series with Metroid Prime 2.
Is it the scary one?
Yeah, this would be the more horror-themed one.
I thought the scary one was Federation Force because everyone was scared of its existence.
See, I was going to give the more serious answer that I thought Corruption was supposed to be the scary one.
Nah, Metroid Prime 2 has a much darker theme.
Yeah.
So, I think overall, from start to finish, Metroid Prime 2 is definitely the darkest one. Although Corruption does have some dark themes too.
And the plot line is basically after Metroid Prime, you've defeated the Metroid Prime, except for the part where only it's just mutated into now Dark Samus, who is now you're going to be your primary enemy, Prime. You go to the planet Aether, you go to the planet Aether, and there's the Luminoth, who are big old moth people, the Mothmans. And they're like, oh shit, bad stuff has happened. We have like parallel dimensions going here with a light Aether and a dark Aether, and one of them's infested with monsters, and they're trying to take over light Aether. And all of my kin are in suspension, and I'm basically the guardian here. Thank God you came because you have guns. Save us. And
none of us have guns. So.
Yeah, none of us have guns. So essentially, what has happened is Dark Samus has rolled in Dark Aether, is allowing the siege using the power of Phazon, more or less.
Yeah,
some bullshit happens, you lose all your powers, and from that point on, it's a Metroid game, except the twist is you jump between a light world and a dark world, and the dark world is extremely aggressive, and literally just the atmosphere hurts you, which I thought was the dumb part.
Actually, I quite like that, but there you go. Anyway, yeah, one thing straight off the bat is where they take the items away from you, I think works really well in this game.
Finally, it makes sense.
Yeah, because normally these kind of games where they take the items away from you, it's dumb. I mean, like in Symphony of the Night, Death comes and he's just like, I'm just going to take your equipment.
Right.
I know this isn't going to stop you, but I'm just going to take your equipment just for no reason. I could literally stop you, but I'm not. I'm just going to take away your hard guns, your hard swords, rather, not guns. No guns in Symphony of the Night.
Well, that'd be
and then in Metroid Prime 1, it's like, oh, I've had a bit of a bump, and now suddenly nothing works anymore. And it's a bit dumb. Whereas on this one, you get lured into an ambush by Dark Samus, and then the Ing basically pile on you and start ripping your upgrades from you.
Yeah.
And then they basically take them and use them for yourselves. So you're not finding upgrades that happen to just be scattered around the environment. You're hunting down these creatures that have stolen your upgrades, but they're now infused with the power of the upgrades. So, like, for example, there's the Bomb Guardian, where, you know, he's literally dropping your Morph Ball bombs around. There's one which is on the spider tracks. So there's one that's attached to spider tracks and he's going round and you've got to take care of it. But you can't use the spider tracks, so you're in the Morph Ball, but you're doing things basically the hard way in order to take it down. And it's a really cool approach, and I don't think I've seen any Metroidvania game where it's done so well, where they've taken your items away and made you get them back in such a manner.
No, the only other Metroid game that well, no, I take that back. There's two Metroid games that sensibly take your items away beyond this. Corruption, because they literally build you a new suit.
Oh, yeah.
And Infusion, where they literally build you a new suit, so you have to start from scratch. Versus
don't forget Other M, though, because they don't take the items away from you. Instead, you get told, you can't use those items. Yes, sir.
We're not going to talk about Other M. We're just going to backpedal here.
Can I use my function that protects me from lava? No, you can't.
No,
You're
can't.
Have to wait a little.
Versus the classic Mega Man syndrome of it's a new game and I don't have anything because we said so.
Yeah, I mean, at least Zelda normally has the excuse of it's a different person.
Yeah, I mean, in fairness with like Mega Man, because the game's story is basically so basic, really. that it doesn't really matter because it's the same story every time. It's like Dr. Wily made some bad robots. Go and take down the bad robots and try and capture Dr. Wily. And that's the exact same story every time. So the game is sort of like a remake every time.
I guess officially with the Mega Man thing, from what I have heard, is that after he beats Wily, because Mega Man doesn't want to be a combat robot, he's doing it because he feels he needs to.
Right.
He deletes
every time
modules.
he puts it. He basically purges himself of his weapons, all the extra weapon systems, because he doesn't want to be a combat robot.
Which,
However,
but it's like, okay, the first 2 times you'd think, yeah, okay, I'm gonna get rid of these. After that, he's just gonna be like, I'm just gonna keep these because I know he's gonna get out again.
Well, the thing is, it's only the 7th game where he actually captures him. The other games, he escapes. I mean, I think there's maybe 1 or 2 where he doesn't know that he's escaped, but like a lot of them, he visibly sees Dr. Wily escape, so he knows nothing's ended yet. So it's like, might want to keep on to these modules until I finally take him down. I don't know. Anyway, Metroid Prime 2.
I will say, and I know you didn't get too far into this, so I don't want to do too much spoilers for you, Steven. But the one thing I did like about Metroid Prime 2, because it's not one of my favorite Metroid Prime series, I think I actually like Corruption just a little bit better, because Metroid Prime 2 has a really bizarre difficulty curve. Because like I said, when you go into Dark Aether, literally standing outside of these little light bubbles hurts you. And it doesn't hurt you just a little bit, you take steady damage. So you have to sprint from light bubble to light bubble.
Oh boy.
You see, I like that because, I mean, the light bubbles are relatively frequent and there's never here's loads of combat going on, so you're having to dodge between light bubbles. It's generally platforming, so you're in a light bubble and you're like, okay, I need to get over to that thing, so let's shoot the next light bubble and we'll just wander over there. It's never particularly stressful. It's one of those things that feels more stressful than it actually is because you're not bombarded.
Suit, which, if I recall, they throw the dark suit at you pretty quickly.
Yeah.
It dampens that damage a lot, so suddenly it's not like, oh man, I have to be careful when I'm running through these areas because if I get sloppy, I'll take too much damage before bosses in certain, fight sequences.
And the good thing as well is that Metroid Prime 2 changes the way items are dropped. So it sees what you need and gives you it. So if you need weapon ammo, it will give you weapon ammo. If you need health, it'll give you health. So it's a lot more generous in that respect. Because it's like, okay, I'm not going to give you weapon stuff that you're not going to use because you're hurting for health. So you'll find in speedruns that people often take a lot of damage because they're like, okay, I'm really low on damage, so I'm going to get one of the big health drops in the next weapon crate because I'm so low on health. And that's generally what you'll find. So it's, as I say, it's one of those things that, like with Majora's Mask, where the time limit seems really stressful, but in reality it's not too bad as long as you kind of focus a bit. Similarly, it's kind of okay in this. It feels very stressful, especially at first, but it's not quite as bad as it seems on the surface.
And that's another reason I said Metroid Prime 2 is the scary installment, because it does bring in a horror survival element. Your bonus weapons, you have the light beam, the dark beam, and eventually the annihilator beam, they take ammo. It's not just missiles like previous. You have actual weapon ammo. And while running out is not super common, it can happen if you're just shooting willy-nilly. You still have a little bit of resource management going on. You have a more survival feel going on because it is just a more caustic environment. They did pull certain survival horror elements into the game, and while it's not my favorite type of game, I have to admit that they did it very well. A lot of those boss fights, and even just some of the standard enemies you come across in Dark Aether, standard. When you get to the Torvis Bog, you have a couple enemies in there that are just a real bitch to take on.
Yeah, I mean, the weapon stuff, I think it is a good addition, but I do find item management for the ammo to be a bit of a pain, because you get ammo drops based on the opposite weapon you're using. So if you need dark gun ammo, you have to use the light gun. So you're juggling between them. which is a sort of nice system, because if you've got like 0 ammo or anything, then it's a way of making sure the other one's topped up. But like sometimes, like when you're in Dark Ether, you're going to be using your light gun, so it seems a bit of a shame to pop out your dark gun when it's not going to really do anything.
Personally, I didn't really get far enough to get into the dark version of the world. I got stuck on the bomb worm boss, which I believe is like the second main boss.
So you've done the Alpha Splinter, you've done like the big bug, yeah?
Yes.
And then after that, I think it's the Bomb Guardian.
Yeah.
Okay, and you've got no further than that. So I think the one after that is the first one that's in Dark Ether. So it's the jump one, which you can totally cheese.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I didn't get that far. That bomb worm. It just wouldn't take damage, really. And I kind of like.
What you have to do is you have to use charge shots. So you have to hit its tail until its head comes up, and then you do a charge shot in the mouth.
All right, because I was doing like a little bit of damage, but the entire time you're getting hit by those bombs unless you kind of like really fast. And the problem is you're kind of like running around to avoid the bombs, and then you lose your lock on, and then you got to turn around again, which takes a long time to turn around in this game. And by the time you've kind of like locked back onto it, it stopped being in its like vulnerable state.
Yeah, honestly, I find the Bomb Guardian to be a little bit of a pain in the ass. I don't really enjoy that boss as much. I mean, it's fine, but if I had to choose my favourite bosses from the game, that wouldn't be particularly high up.
I mean, it's literally a pain in the ass
because
it drops bombs out of its ass.
Oh, you.
Exactly.
Well, I was going to say the one thing that Metroid Prime 2 does well, and I will say does even better than most of the Metroid series. I think Super Metroid probably nails it harder than most other games. Is as you upgrade, by the time you've like full upgrade and you're making your way to like the penultimate and ultimate bosses of the game, you're just a walking armory. Yeah. And like before, the world would literally kill you just because you're there. Not even like classic Metroid is everything's out to kill you, and now the planet's out to kill you. Like you have your light suit. You don't give a fuck. You can literally use the environment with your charged annihilator beam to like light shit up and kill things with light in Dark Aether, which is really cool. Super Metroid, you have the huge stack of beams and you're in a gravity suit and screw attack and nothing can stop you on your way to the final boss. And they really did a good job in Metroid Prime 2. And that's what's fun about Metroidvania games is knowing how strong you actually are in the end.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, Symphony of the Night does that quite well. I mean,
it does.
You have like stuff like the knights that you're struggling with near the start. Mm-hmm. And then you go back there later on, you kind of like
just breathe on them and they're dead.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's the whole thing where the first boss is just a regular enemy later on in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the good thing about Symphony of the Night is you start off strong and you're just plowing through everything easy. And then you get all your items taken away from you and you're like, oh, I'm so weak now. And then you become as powerful as you were before and then more.
Yeah, especially if you get those awesome dual knuckles.
Yeah. But the good thing about Metroid Prime 2 as well is I find it's quite rewarding because the best upgrades usually have quite difficult or quite intricate bosses. So you end up taking down like this crazy creature or whatever, and you end up getting a really good item upgrade. Like the best item in the game, which is the Annihilator Beam, which is like a fusion of the two guns. You have to take down this massive creature. And it's something that literally fills the entire room. And it's just like a really epic and difficult boss fight. But the reward for doing so becomes the Annihilator Beam, which is ridiculously strong. It really handles the bosses well in Metroid Prime 2.
No, I will say that. And the problem, like, if you say, because you're talking about, like, the Bomb Guardian is just kind of a bastard to deal with at first. The difficulty curve of Metroid Prime 2 is a little high at the beginning, once you get a couple upgrades on your belt, really once you get the dark suit, which is like, I swear it's 3 or 4 upgrades in, it's really close. They don't waste any time giving you that.
Yeah,
The
you
game
get that.
it suddenly levels out a bit more, and it becomes a more reasonable game.
Well, I didn't have any problems up to that point. I mean, that was the first time that I died on that bomb boss.
Well, right after the boss that you reached, slightly after that is where you enter Dark Ether for the first time. Other than the cutscene where you lose all your stuff. And I think that the reason why they give you the dark suit pretty early on is they want you to feel like Dark Ether is just this really oppressive place and really dangerous place. So they want you to lose all that health. And you only go in there like a tiny bit. There's like a few short corridors and then a boss. And then you're out of there. So it never really spends too much time. But it wants you to feel like it's a dangerous place. Then they're like, okay, here's a suit. Now you can actually do stuff there. And then eventually you get a light suit and you can just wander around.
But they wait a long time to give you the light suit, so it keeps a very...
Oh yeah, the light suit takes a while, but the dark suit, I just say, is really early on.
Yeah, they give you the dark suit really long, then your last upgrade comes, it's like the second to last upgrade. It's super late in the game. And I think that's intentionally to keep a little bit of pressure on you through the entire game, even if it's not as much, which is a very smart decision.
Yeah, it also helps give the game more of a horror atmosphere. Mm-hmm. As you mentioned when we covered Metroid Prime 1, Metroid Prime 1 was an adventure, but they sort of lost all the horror elements of the earlier 2D ones. Like with, well, pretty much all the 2D ones, really, they've got this very kind of horror atmosphere to it. Whereas Metroid Prime loses all that completely. Metroid Prime 2 picks that up again and really goes with it.
Yeah, I wasn't huge on Metroid Prime. If you can remember when we covered it, I just couldn't get into it. But Metroid Prime 2, I really enjoyed. Like I said, I'm only like a couple hours in, but it's definitely something that I'm actually going to go back and put more time into. Because
it's my favourite of the Metroid Prime games and one of my favourite games of all time. So, yeah, it's a fantastic game. You should definitely try and get through it.
Yeah, one thing that I appreciated in those first couple hours, it only had like one first-person platforming section, whereas there were multiple in Metroid Prime 1.
Yeah, the platforming is relatively minimal in this. It does have platforming, but not much dangerous platforming for the most part. I mean, later on it does have some more complicated stuff, but a lot of it's just finding your way around and exploring rather than, getting you to do difficult platforming feats.
So, I would like to kick out my one actual gripe with the game. And maybe you'll agree with me, Adam, maybe you'll like it. So, I mentioned when we talked about Symphony of the Night, I mentioned Harmony of Dissonance and how it was kind of like a Symphony of the Night remix. And one thing it did is instead of an inverted castle, it did a light castle, dark castle. And you'll have to wander through the castle and you go, oh, I can't pass this wall yet. But if I wander back over here, go through the portal to the dark castle, now I can go through this wall because it's busted open in this version. It's filled to the brim with shit like that. And it's annoying. Because it feels like a way to artificially expand the gameplay. Because sometimes you have to backtrack a long ways. Metroid Prime 2, not as frequently, but does the same thing where you'll go wandering all the way down here, filling out your map, finding out where you need to go, just to find an obstacle you cannot get past.
Yeah, I suppose that's this kind of game.
And you'll sit there going, how do I get past this? Oh, I don't know. Go back, figure out, well, there's nothing I can do in the dark world this time. Go back to Light Aether, wander back down this path as best you can, and suddenly the doors open and there's a portal on the other side to get you to the dark world. And it's just, it seems like artificial extension.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I might have felt that when I originally played it. Now I never feel the need to go between dark and light, finding my way around. I never really get lost to that degree. Usually if I have to backtrack, it's backtracking in the light area, to be honest. And the dark area I find quite straightforward. But that might be down to my familiarity with the game now. So I couldn't say for sure. with regards to backtracking and stuff, I don't necessarily mind it as much in this game, and I never had so much of a problem. Like, even the stuff that you do at the end of the game, like if you remember in Metroid Prime 1, you have to go and get like the artifacts. There's a similar thing in this game, but I don't find it quite as annoying, and I find it gives you easier instructions in order to find them, so it feels less like padding and more like just another thing to do.
Right. It's just, I remember when I was playing it before, it was just that every time that happened, and it was far too frequently, even though it wasn't constant, it was just like, oh, so I can see where I need to go, and now I have to wander all the way back around to my portal and come back down here. Perhaps now, if I played it again, I would be like, okay, I just spend more time in the light world. You spend as much time in the light world as you can until you have to go to the dark aether, kill something, jump back to light. I just found that as a cheap design, and it rubbed me the wrong way. And again, not saying that Metroid Prime 2 is bad in any way. It's just there's really no such thing as a perfect game. You can always find something, and that's what I found to be the worst offense.
I think this genre's kind of got a lot of that in it, to be honest. So it's just how bad it is, more than anything.
The one thing that really annoyed me is something that was carried over from the first game as well, and that is that god-awful map.
Yeah, it's not great.
It's horrible. And
Why?
God knows why Doom 2016 decided, that's the kind of map I want. Because it's just, it's just horrible. Oh. Yeah, I hate it.
The 3D map that isn't particularly excellent.
You see, I don't mind it. I generally kind of get an idea of where stuff is using it.
Well, and it's not as bad in Metroid Prime. Sometimes you can get a little confused as to where you are. But in Doom 2016, it was, much as I love that game, that map was basically useless.
I never used it.
Did people use the map in Doom 2016?
I did.
If you're trying to go for collectibles, you kind of needed it to pinpoint where collectibles were, but it didn't actually help you get to the collectibles because it was so bizarre. You're just like, oh, I understand that I'm in this section of the map, and it's over in that section. I'll figure out how to get all the way over there. But you couldn't actually really guide yourself with the map. It was more of just like, point of reference, here's where I need to go, and that's it. There was no navigation with it. Just kind of, they could have just put a big arrow that went go that way, and it would have been more helpful.
Yeah,
I don't remember using it in Doom 2016. How might I have done? It's been a while since I've done it, and my memory's terrible. But
you're not missing out on anything if you didn't use the map.
Yeah, I just can't imagine why I would use it in Doom 2016. Maybe I used it for the collectibles because I did get all the collectibles in Doom 2016, so I probably used it. I don't know. Anyway, in this game, I never had much of an issue with the map. One good thing about this game as well is that the bit at the beginning where you lose all your upgrades, you can actually skip that and keep all your upgrades. And that's something that's impossible to do in the original, which I always find annoying. So like now when I replay the game, I skip over that section.
How do you do it?
Well, you know the bit where there's a central room and it's sort of like a pushing thing that acts for a wall or a door, like right at the beginning?
Oh, that big piston thing.
Yeah, there's a big piston. That's what the word I'm looking for. Like a big piston that acts like a door. Well, that central thing where the pistons are coming from, you can jump on top of that and basically clip on the map. And then you can just kind of clip to the other side and go over where that forced trap is.
That's funny.
And because it's not like with Metroid Prime 1, you've got the space station, and then you've got when you're actually down on Talon 4. And because it's like a whole transition between the space station and Talon 4, when you get dumped on there, the game just gives you no weapons. So even if you could avoid the bit that takes away the weapons, you're programmed to be there with no items and stuff.
right.
Whereas Metroid Prime 2, it's all the same area. So if you can get around that trigger, you've kept your items. As long as you avoid that room in future and don't accidentally walk back into it, then you can keep all your shit.
Interesting.
That is hilarious. Oh man, but so like what happens then if you go really deep into the game and get a whole bunch of new upgrades, do sort of an out of order adventure, and then go back to that room? Do you lose all of them, or do you just lose the scripted ones?
I think you just use. Well, no, I think it just takes away the scripted ones, but I'm not sure.
Like, could you super break the game?
Possibly. I'll have to try that at some point. I'm not entirely sure. But it's cool because, like, you know, the first Dark World bit where you have to fight the Jump Guardian.
Mm-hmm.
Because you've got the jump, you can effectively go straight to that boss. But because you haven't wandered through the direct trigger that makes him jump down, you can basically just stand on the top ledge, keep shooting him until he's run out of health, and then as soon as you jump into the pit to trigger the fight, he's basically like one shot away from death. So
That's
you just
amazing.
like you shoot him with a lemon, he's just like, ugh. Nice.
I do enjoy like out of order adventures, so like I've done a bit of Metroid Prime, where you in Metroid Prime you can cheese and get the jump boots right away.
Yeah, it's sort of like it's sort of like that. It's a bit finicky to jump out of the map because getting on top of it, you have to do a kind of an awkward jump. But yeah, if you can do that, you can do loads of stuff out of order. It's really fun.
I'll have to set up. Does it work on the?
It works on all versions.
It works on all versions. Okay.
Oh, do you mean like the Wii version?
Yeah.
I imagine it works on the Wii version.
Because I know, because supposedly I haven't tried it, but supposedly the out of order or Space Jump Boots First doesn't work on the Wii version.
I'll have to look, but I think it works on there.
So I didn't have a whole lot to say on this one, but I do want to say I did enjoy the game. I'm looking forward to when I get to it. And so when I played the first Metroid Prime, I played the Wii version because that's the version I owned. This time I played the GameCube version. So I've kind of got experience with both control schemes now, and I see why some people prefer the GameCube controls, and I see why they're so upset about the Wii controls. I still think they're both fine. Like, the GameCube controls are definitely very good. They feel very tight. But, you know, I still think the Wii controls are fine.
So I'm gonna tell you something real quick.
I think the issue is removing the Wii controls rather than the fact that it had them. I think if they'd have kept GameCube controller support, because you could use the GameCube controller on the Wii,
right?
If they'd have just said, plug in the GameCube controller, you can play it normally, then people would have been fine with it. But, like, for me, I played Metroid Prime 3, and I thought it was alright. But for me, the controls were the thing that spoiled it, because I found that my arm was just getting tired so often, and it just felt like a chore to play, and I was just like, I want to beat this game, but it's also a pain in the ass to play.
Right.
And the idea of playing Metroid Prime 2 with that kind of control scheme just feels like a pain, because Metroid Prime is a game to play in, like, large segments. It's not something you just play for, like, 20 minutes and then stop.
Right.
You know, it's something you'd play for hours, which that kind of control scheme where you're holding your arm out in front of you and fucking waggling it about, I don't think that's the best control scheme for that type of game.
And another thing I'm going to let you know when you go through and play all these games back to back, my recommendation is to play Metroid Prime and Metroid Prime 2 on original hardware. And then play Metroid Prime 3. Because if you play Metroid Prime 1 and 2 on the trilogy and then play 3, you're going to get really mad at 3.
Because 3 is going to feel worse.
Because 3 feels worse.
Yeah, because they did that enhanced control scheme for 1 and 2 after.
Yeah, so they didn't go back and enhance controls for 3 in the trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same as the individual release, and it's just there's just a lot of little janky things that happen, and it can be frustrating, but it's a billion times worse when you play it fixed on 1 and 2. So, for the sake of not ruining 3, your experience with 3, just play on the GameCube for the first 2.
Okay.
My recommendation is to just play Metroid Prime Trilogy on the Switch, which is due any day now, I'm assuming.
Any day.
Apparently, it's been ready and made for like forever, and they must just be delaying it to make it coincide with Metroid Prime 4 a bit more. Maybe when we get a first teaser of Metroid Prime 4, they'll release it.
Maybe, we'll
like,
see.
Here's a teaser for the new Metroid Prime 4, and here's Trilogy available today.
That would be the best thing they could do.
I have a feeling Metroid Prime Trilogy will drop on Switch as you can download it on the eShop right now kind of thing. It feels like now it's available.
I sincerely hope there's a physical copy of that.
Oh, no, Nintendo always
I imagine there will be a physical copy, but I imagine it's one of those things where they're like, and it's available right now.
And to preserve the original feel, we've allowed you. It only plays on Joy-Cons, which now sync to your Switch.
Yeah,
or not Joy-Cons. Your Wiimote.
Wii Remote, yeah.
No.
It would be interesting to see how they'd handle that, because the Joy-Cons, I don't think have. I don't think their motion control is as good as, say, a Wii Remote Plus would be. It would be interesting to see what they do with 3, because 3 never had the GameCube control scheme.
I think, if anything, they would probably do like a more traditional control scheme with gyro, because gyro aiming seems to be the big thing at the moment, which, for me, I've never really been that keen on gimmicky controls, but gyro aiming is great.
Yeah, I mean, that's because it works.
For me, it's great for precision stuff. It's, sometimes games do it and it's not really that well. I mean, a lot of people praise Doom 16 for the gyro aiming, but out of the games I played on the Switch, I think that's got the worst gyro aiming, personally. But I think in general, in the first-person game, gyro aiming is really useful.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't think there's a whole lot more to say about Metroid Prime 2, other than if you like Metroid Prime, you probably should give this a swing if you haven't.
And even like in my case, if you didn't really like Metroid Prime, give it a go, because I enjoyed this.
Oh, also, Dark Samus is a really, really cool villain. And for something that was like a real hidden ending for the original game, Dark Samus turned out really well. She's awesome.
This is true.
Yeah, cool. So if that's everything that we have to say about Metroid Prime 2, then I think it's time to move on to Adam's pick. So we will have a musical interlude, and then we will do just that.
So my pick is Castlevania, Aria of Sorrow, which incidentally is another Metroidvania game which is appropriate to follow Metroid, because now we have the Vania part. So Aria of Sorrow was released in 2003, and it was a Game Boy Advance game. It was, I think it was the last Game Boy Advance game. Am I right? Because there was Harmony of Dissonance. There was something else which I can't quite remember. And then there was Aria of Sorrow. Am I right in thinking that?
I mean, that sounds about right.
Yeah. Well, if not, I'm just going to try and sound a bit more confident, and hopefully I'm right.
Just roll with it.
Yeah, exactly. So, one thing is that when you start playing the game, straight off the bat, is it's very different to other Castlevania games. Not just because you're not playing a vampire hunter, you're playing just some dude. But it's also set in the future. The distant future of 2035. And he's basically visiting like a solar eclipse with his childhood friend, which is sort of weird because like the sentence before it describes him as an international exchange student and suddenly has a lifelong friend in Japan who happens to have a Japanese name. Right. I'm not quite sure how that works. Probably like a mistranslation or something. But either way, they're watching the eclipse and then they get sucked inside the eclipse and they end up in a castle, which, ends up being Dracula's castle, of course. Anyway, they go through and you end up finding out that you end up absorbing like the souls of these creatures you kill. And that basically works as a central mechanic of the game. So how it works is when you kill enemies, they have like a random chance to drop a soul, and these could grant you like special powers. Some of them are like special attacks, like if you destroy the skeleton, you can throw a bone, or like you destroy like a mud creature, you can throw a bit of mud. But there are some other kind of abilities as well that are like passive abilities and just kind of there in order to help you. It's basically like the sub-weapons from the older games, but, in a different way that's a little bit more fun. And because it's a random drop, it's also pretty addictive. Because if you don't get, like, your weapon drop, you end up finding that you want to just keep on grinding the enemy until you get it. And it's really fun. If you've ever played Bloodstained, it's basically that. But obviously, this is what Bloodstained based off of. But yeah, how far did people get? I don't want to spoil the story.
I don't know the name of the area, but it was just after I got the whip sword.
So do people know about the twist?
I do not.
So I've watched like a whole series of videos about the Castlevania series. So I've been told the twist, but I don't remember it.
Well,
I mean, like, it's sort of.
I kind of predicted I kind of see the twist coming, but they kind of slip earlier on where one of the missionaries in Dracula's castle is like, "Oh, did you talk to I mean, it's like, oh, so one dude is clearly Alucard.
Yeah, there's one dude who's Alucard that you meet early on in the game,
and one of the first guys you meet is almost definitely Dracula's vessel.
Sorry, did you say almost definitely?
Is almost definitely Dracula's vessel, because where one guy says like, "Oh, I have a feeling it might be him," and you're like, he's pretty normal.
Oh, okay, right, okay. I won't spoil the twist then, because you don't really know yet. But anyway, part of the story, as you mentioned before, is that, Dracula's dead, and basically there's going to be a vessel for Dracula's soul, basically, to become the new Dracula, and that's how it's effectively set up. And you go through, and it's sort of like a normal Castlevania game, apart from, you've got this soul mechanic, and that structures the main combat, but then you can use stuff like knives and swords and shit like that as well.
Right.
But it's cool. I like it quite a lot. What do you guys think to it?
I actually really, really liked the soul mechanic. I thought that was a really creative way to have the sub weapons, but also have them be different and have more variety in what you were doing with them.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but I find that with the sub weapons in the other games, I tend not to use them that much. Like, I find that with some of them, like I used to have the time one in Symphony of the Night, and then just use it sometimes where I wanted to get through an area, or if it was a tough enemy, I would use it. But I'd usually ignore them. And, like in Rondo of Blood, I'd have the Holy Water and stuff. And I'd usually just stick to one sub-weapon and kind of use it on a rare occasion. But in this game, like the Souls, I use quite a lot. Because you're constantly getting new ones, and you're constantly finding ones that are better than the old ones.
Mm-hmm.
I did use the skeleton bone throw quite a lot. But in previous games like Symphony of the Night, I used the axe a hell of a lot, which is essentially the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, the axe is probably the one that I use the most.
It does lay down the pain.
But a lot of those sub-weapon type souls, they are essentially the same thing, just they look different.
There's a lot more of them as well, because you've got basically one for every enemy type.
Right.
And they do power up as well, so you can make them stronger. So, as I say, it's basically like in Bloodstained with the shards. If you play Bloodstained and you know about the shard mechanic, it's basically the same thing.
So yeah, it was something that I was already familiar with because I did first encounter it in Bloodstained, and going back to this, yeah, it's like basically the same thing. But so far as I've got in the game, I don't have too many of the passive ones. I've got one which gives me kind of like a ever so slight floating ability, so I can get to some far off ledges. But that's like the only really useful one that I have aside from the sub weapon type ones.
Yeah, I mean the good thing is about the souls in this one, as I say, is that for the most part, as you make your way through the game, you'll find better and better souls as you go on. It's not like, you know, with Bloodstained, for example, there's some souls, you know, like in the first third of the game, that you'll probably keep for the rest of the time because they're so powerful. With this one, it does seem to have better progression of the souls, so you are constantly trying new ones out. I mean, you will get favourites, of course, but that's just natural.
Yeah, I mean, like in Bloodstained, once I had that drill, I just stuck with that pretty much. That drill with all the swords like around it that just obliterates everything in its path.
Yeah, those were pretty cool. What do you think of the music in this game? I think the music is one of the stronger parts of the game. Music's really cool.
Oh yeah. I mean,
But I mean,
most Castlevania games have got excellent music, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean,
it wasn't as strong as Symphony of the Night soundtrack, but it was still good.
Well, no, yeah, like I said, you say most Symphony or Dracula games. Well, I mean, whatever. Most Castlevania games, I haven't played one that hasn't had a good soundtrack. There might be one. I haven't found it yet.
I mean, I've only played a bit of Castlevania 64, but I can't remember like anything from that in terms of music.
I mean, I would imagine Adventure doesn't sound super great since it's on the Game Boy.
Yeah. But maybe. I don't know.
I mean, the Castlevania series sort of has Mega Man syndrome, where even if the game isn't super good, the music tends to be.
Mega Man 11 says hi. Good gameplay, shit music. But I know what you mean. Yeah, I mean, Castlevania is generally really strong for music. Oh, I've just remembered. Did you meet the shopkeeper yet?
No.
Hammer?
No.
Oh, he's really good, because basically he's a part of the military. So he's part of the army. And he effectively just abandoned his mission to the castle, which I think he was sent to the castle to basically sort out the shit that was going on there. He basically got there, abandoned his mission, and just set up shop to make a bit of money. And it's basically as ridiculous as it sounds. So there's just like this military guy sending you stuff, selling you stuff in the castle.
Well, and it's silly too, because it's like, go to this castle filled with monsters, and you're not like, oh man, this shit's crazy, better go inform the military. You're like, man, this is untapped market right here, a gold mine.
Crazier than a librarian selling you loads of shit. But yeah. So what bosses did you actually fight, by the way?
Oh, I didn't get terribly far in.
I mean, there's this crappy skeleton one at the start, which is a bit...
Yeah, he's. I didn't realize, when I entered that area, I didn't realize I was in a boss until I couldn't back away.
Yeah.
And it's the same with the second boss, the Manticore. I didn't realize I was in a boss until I couldn't get away.
I think I got to the third boss. I think he's like a big knight guy. Is that the third boss?
I think so, yeah. I can't remember the order of them, but I think so.
Yeah, third sounds about right. I didn't find the bosses too difficult, apart from like that night guy, which I did die at.
I don't think they're too difficult, and I find them to be quite fun as well. They're usually pretty good. I got as far as I can't remember his name in Symphony of Night. Is it Granfalloon in Symphony of Night? I think they changed his name to Legion. You know the ball of corpses?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
He's in this one as well. And the fight is so good. I mean, the actual fight itself is basically the same. But leading up to it, you're in this area, and those corpses that make up part of it, they're just wandering around. And they all seem to be heading towards the same area, like the boss door. And then as you go in, you see all these corpses walk in and then get sucked up, and they become part of the boss. So it's really cool because it's got like this anticipation as you're seeing all these corpses just walking towards the boss door.
That's really funny too, because Legion is also in Harmony of Dissonance.
And in Harmony of Despair.
So it's just like, I guess that just became a staple boss like Death.
Yeah, I think there are a few bosses that have been redone. I know Legion is one of them, and I think there are a few other bosses that do return.
But like at the same time, you have that Manticore one that you mentioned, which I didn't really like that boss fight because you can like totally just jump up on the ledges, wait for your energy to restore, and nothing can touch you while you're up there.
That's true.
And then go back down, use your specials again, and then go back up. So that was a bit disappointing. If those ledges hadn't been there, that would have been a much better boss fight.
Well, like, you don't even have to go up on the ledges. You can. Are you talking about the staircase on either side?
It might have been the staircase. Yeah.
On the far left side of that room, there's a staircase, a short one, and you can stand at the top, and the Manticore will sort of back off and come forward, and he'll shoot a fireball, and you can run down to the base of the staircase, slap him a few times, and then backdash up the staircase, and he might sting, or he might shoot another fireball, and it's just...
Yeah.
It's a non-boss fight.
But I find that the bosses do tend to improve as they go on. As far as I got. But it's quite cool. Like, I've seen some videos of some of the other bosses as well that I checked out. And, like, for example, there's one where, like, loads of bats appear. And, like, with the Legion boss, they all form into, like, this giant bat. And you kind of think, oh, it's just a fucking giant bat. But then, like, this big hand comes out of nowhere and crushes the bat. And that's, like, the true boss. Like, this big fucking Cyclops gargoyle type thing. It's really cool. But, like, Castlevania tends to be quite good with bosses as well, like with music. So,
I spoke poorly of this game before, because I tried playing it years and years and years ago, right after I played Harmony of Dissonance. Because I really like Harmony of Dissonance.
Did you play it on the GBA, or did you play it on the TV?
Well, the first time I tried playing it, I played it on my DS Lite. I got the Castlevania double pack, and that's how I played Harmony of Dissonance and tried to play Aria of Sorrow. I hated Aria of Sorrow. This time I played it on my Game Boy Player, not having let in after what a truly excellent game Harmony of Dissonance is. I was enjoying Aria of Sorrow much more. It felt better.
Yeah, I think it probably benefits from being played on the TV.
Yeah, definitely. I started out on the Game Boy, and my hands kind of started to hurt after a little while, just because of like the layout of the SP controls. So I switched to the TV. I put it in the Retron 5, played it with a SNES controller, and that was so much more comfortable. I did notice that the controls generally aren't as responsive as they are in Symphony of the Night. But other than that, the gameplay is pretty much kind of like the same, more or less. Yeah.
Yeah, I got it on the Wii U eShop, and that's how I played it. And I definitely think it's a better game played up on the big screen.
Yeah, definitely.
Because it is, and that's the thing. This and Harmony of Dissonance, being probably built off the same engine, obviously, are very, very pretty games for what is a 2D 32-bit console. Like, the sprites look amazing.
Oh yeah.
For the platform, like, then the end, it's smooth. The animation is so smooth.
I kind of think the same with all kind of Metroidvania games, to be honest. Like the portable Metroid ones, I think are better on the big screen, and you kind of notice the excellent sprite work as well. Like if you play Fusion on a telly, rather than just playing on, like a tiny little screen, I think it definitely enhances the experience.
Yeah.
So that being said, I'm probably going to sit back. I'm probably going to finish this time, versus last time I probably played for 30 minutes, got mad and disappointed, and went and played something else. That was 10 years ago almost.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna come back to it when I'm doing stuff for my channel.
Boy, that's gonna be a hell of a march. Are you gonna go through all of the Castlevania games, or all of the main ones anyway?
Probably.
Godspeed, man.
Because I mean, I'm definitely gonna get the Castlevania collection on Switch. Like that's not even a question.
But yeah, I changed my opinion. I think this is a pretty solid game.
Nice, good to hear it.
Yeah, I'm probably going to go back and finish it as well.
Yeah, this is actually my first time with the game. I had played Dawn of Sorrow before, and I originally was going to put that on because I liked it and enjoyed it a lot. But because it's a DS game, I figured it would be a bit more difficult for people to access.
Yeah.
Where EBA game, if you don't have a Nintendo DS, then there's emulation, there's Raspberry Pis, there's all kinds of ways that you can play.
There's the Wii U eShop. There's
loads of ways to play it as opposed to that. And I kind of figured that Aria of Sorrow's got a good reputation. It's the same kind of gameplay style, so I figured it would probably be a safe bet. And I'm glad it turned out that everyone seemed to like it.
Yeah, and I was able to pick it up really cheap as well. I think I paid $7.99 on eBay for an unboxed cartridge. It is quite clearly a repro, but it works. So, Yeah,
I mean, that's about what I paid Nintendo for the digital copy. So,
not too bad.
If I'd known it was on the Wii U eShop, then I probably would have picked that up on there.
Never mind. Cool.
Yeah, so does anyone else have anything to say about Aria of Sorrow?
No?
It's good.
No, I voiced my opinion.
Yeah, good game. Okay, so that was our 4 games for Halloween. Now we have a bit of a treat that I have put together for the other guys. We have a horror quiz. So we will take a short break and then we will be back with that. Okay, so now it's time for the quiz. Now, for this quiz, basically, I'm going to tell you the subtitle of a game and you have to tell me what game franchise it is from. So, as a non-horror example, if I would say Vice City, then you'll know the game franchise would be Grand Theft Auto.
I was going to say Pokemon.
So I've got 9 questions. They're all horror games. This is probably going to be a bit difficult. If you're not overly familiar with a lot of titles from a lot of franchises in the horror genre, then you might struggle with some. So some of them are kind of like horror adjacent rather than straight up horror games. But
so this will be good for us straight, which I'm very familiar with horror games.
Yeah, we'll see how you do.
We'll see.
Okay, so question 1, the first subtitle is Maiden of Black Water. So we'll start with Adam. Do you know what game franchise that is from?
I want to say Fatal Frame. I could be wrong, but I have heard of that subtitle before. And it's not going to be for one of the big ones that I'm familiar with, like Resident Evil or Silent Hill. So I would stick with Fatal Frame.
Okay, Ryan?
Not only do I know that it is Fatal Frame, it is actually Fatal Frame 5.
Oh, do we have to say what number in the series? Or just
No.
Okay.
Stephen?
I was also going to say Fatal Frame.
Yep, that is right. It is indeed Fatal Frame or Project Zero in our part of the world. Okay, so that's a point each. Question 2. The subtitle is Dead Aim. We'll go with Ryan first.
I have no idea. That's not even vaguely familiar.
Okay, Stephen?
I've heard this before, but I don't know what it is.
And Adam?
I want to say Resident Evil. I think it's one of the spin-offs. But I might be wrong. I might be thinking of Dead something else.
No, that is a point to Adam. It is indeed a Resident Evil game.
Is it the light gun game or something like that? I have heard of it.
One of them, yeah. It is a PS2 game, and I do believe it's a light gun game.
Right, cool. I have heard of that.
Okay, question 3 is Shattered Memories. Stephen?
Silent Hill.
Adam?
Silent Hill.
Ryan?
Yeah, it's Silent Hill.
Yes,
Wasn't that
is.
the first one? Where everything was ice?
That is the 3DS one, I believe this is.
No, it was Wii.
Oh, Wii, was it?
Yeah, so I mean, It was like a Wii Is it like a remake of the first game, but everything's ice?
No, I don't think so. Because
no, this is the one with the psychological profiling thing on there.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Like, depending on choices you make, you can have like a room filled with like baby ghosts and stuff like that.
Yeah. I played both of them. I thought it was the Frozen one. What's the Frozen one then?
I'm not sure. I mean, those are pretty much the two Silent Hill games that I haven't played.
All right.
Yeah, but anyway, so yeah, that was a point each. This next one's going to trip you all up, I think. But maybe you'll surprise me.
Why is it one of those horror adjacent ones?
No, it's a pretty big franchise. It is Resist or Serve. Adam.
Resist or Serve? I don't know. I want to say Dead Rising, maybe as like the Wii spin-off, because I never played that. It sounds like something that it could be. Resist or Serve? I don't know. I'll say Dead Rising just as something to say, but I don't know.
Okay, Ryan?
This sounds really familiar. I've never played, but I want to say it popped up on some YouTube gaming channel at some point talking about games, because it sounds really familiar.
So you don't want to have a guess?
But I don't know.
Okay, Stephen?
I'm going to take a shot in the dark and say Wolfenstein.
Okay, well, no, it is none of those. It is actually it is an X-Files game.
Oh, well.
The X-Files Resist or Serve.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I have on PS2.
Is it good?
Is X-Files a horror thing?
Yeah.
Sci-fi?
Paranormal.
Yeah.
Closer.
I mean, the series kind of alternated between sci-fi and horror.
Oh, right. I never really watched the X-Files that much, and the ones I did seem more sci-fi, but fair enough.
Lots of aliens.
Yeah, they had a lot of monsters as well, though.
Oh, right, okay.
Okay, so the next one, this is a super easy one. You should all get this.
Don't say that. No, I'll feel bad if I fuck it up.
It is Deadly Alliance. Ryan.
Give me a second. Because I know what this game is.
Deadly Alliance?
Deadly Alliance. Mortal Kombat. There we go.
Stephen?
I know Dark Alliance. Yeah, I mean, I didn't have a guess until he said Mortal Kombat, so.
Adam?
I figured it out at the same time Ryan figured out it was the one that was released on the GameCube, wasn't it? Deadly Alliance Mortal Kombat.
Yep. So, yeah, that is a point to Adam and Ryan there. It is indeed Mortal Kombat.
That was an easy one. That wasn't an easy one. That one I had to think.
It's quite a popular entry into the franchise, I think.
Is it?
Okay, but how into fighting games are we?
I mean, enough. But the one thing that set Deadly Alliance apart from the other Mortal Kombat games was the style was very different.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, well, on to the next question then. Dark Corners of the Earth. Stephen.
I know this. I love this game.
I don't know this, so pass.
Adam.
I'm going to hazard a guess and say Call of Cthulhu.
Ryan?
No idea.
Yep, it is indeed Call of Cthulhu.
God, you all need to play that game. It's so fucking good.
It is a good game. I did a few hours of it.
Like, it starts off and it's first person and it's kind of like a bit stealthy and a bit kind of investigation. And then it comes more horror and survival horror with actual shooting and stuff and monsters, and it's really good. Like this one bit, you go to bed in this hotel room and you lock the door and everything, and like the owner and like a bunch of villagers start basically coming in and trying to kill you. So you're trying to board everything off and you're running away from them. You're running across like all these rooftops and stuff and trying to hide while everyone's trying to murder you. It's cool.
Yeah, that is a really good sequence. Okay, well, we've got 3 questions left. The next one is The New Nightmare. Adam.
The New Nightmare. I don't know. Nightmares. Is there a Freddy Krueger game? So, is there a Nightmare on Elm Street game? The New Nightmare?
There was one.
Yeah, there was a Nightmare on Elm Street game because it was in the old games list for the ones that weren't released outside of America.
But I'm judging by your tone. That means it's not that. I don't know what horror franchises are there. I don't know. I'm gonna just guess Friday the 13th, like as a Freddy Krueger thing. I don't know. That's the only thing I can think of with Nightmare.
Okay, Ryan.
Nope, got nothing.
Stephen.
I should know this. Like I have heard this before, but I don't know.
Okay, well, Adam's going to kick himself because I know he's played some other games in this franchise. It's from Alone in the Dark.
Oh.
I've only played one game. Well, I've played one and the demo of another. I like Alone in the Dark too. And then I played like the 360 reboot demo, which was terrible. Yeah.
The one where they set everything on fire?
Yeah, where the thing where everything's in light. Yeah, that one. So yeah, I'm not really massive on the series, so even saying it's Alone in the Dark, I'm still clueless.
Fair enough. Well, no points on that one then. Next one.
Does Alone in the Dark have much to do with nightmares, or was that just for one game?
That was just the name of the game. I believe that was the 360 one. I think.
I thought the 360 one was just Alone in the Dark.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, it's the Xbox and PS2 one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Still none.
Sorry?
I'm still none the wiser.
Yeah. Okay, the next question is Criminal Origins. Ryan.
I know this.
I know it too.
I know what this game is. Give me a second. Is it Condemned?
Okay, Stephen.
I mean, the only answer I have is Phoenix Wright as a joke.
That might That would actually be better, but...
Okay, Adam?
Yeah, it's condemned.
Okay, I thought so.
It is indeed condemned. So
Yeah.
Point to Adam and Ryan there.
I got confirmation there. I was pretty sure.
Yeah, that was a great game as well. It was quite a short game and quite basic, like for the time, but it was really fun.
Condemned 2 was not great.
It was okay, but it also kind of messed up a lot of stuff.
Okay, so final question.
Ooh.
This is about as generic a subtitle as you can get. Project Origin. Stephen.
Again, like I've heard this before. I should know this, but I do not remember.
Okay, Adam.
Fear 2. Oh, Fear, if you want the series.
Ryan.
I was going to say Resident Evil.
Nope, it is indeed Fear 2 Project Origin, so a point to Adam there.
Yeah, I don't even like the Fear games, I just remember playing the first 2.
Yeah, so that was the 9 questions there. Adam, I believe you've been keeping score, so what is the final score?
Steve had 2 points, or 11 if you want to count it in, as dashes. And Ryan had 4 points, and I had 7 points.
Damn, slaughtered.
Yeah, so well done, Adam. You win.
Nothing.
No. You win a slow clap.
Thanks.
So yeah, that was our horror episode for this year. Hopefully you enjoyed those 4 games as much as we enjoyed talking about them. There were some really good games there, some that maybe some of you didn't like as much, but there is at least something there for everyone, I think.
Anyone had a favourite from the group of games we covered?
Metroid Prime 2.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it's Metroid Prime 2. It's out of that squad.
So currently it's Luigi's
No,
Mansion.
I take it back. Luigi's Mansion.
Currently it's Luigi's Mansion. It might be Metroid Prime 2 once I've actually gotten through the game.
All right. Well, you two
really
seem
like
to be
Luigi's
borderline with Metroid Prime 2, so I'm going to say Metroid Prime 2 is the winner.
Although, if I was able to pick my own game, I would go Ghostbusters.
You'd be the only one.
Yeah, you would.
Just because I played it so much as a kid.
Fair enough.
Okay, so all that's left to do now is to say thank you for joining us for this horror episode. Hope you had fun. We will see you again next month. So
catch us all next month.
Yeah, it is a goodbye from me and a goodbye from you guys.
Farewell.
Bye.